everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're thrilled you're here for this week's discussion around employee retention and why are our employees leaving, if you haven't caught that out of that first beginning part of the video. But I'm Doug Kothe. I am the founder of People Smart Group, and we seek to help leaders be more effective so that their lives can be easier and more enjoyable. And we're working in with leaders, building their teams and their organizations to be much more effective, and helping that to build a healthy organization, a healthy culture that is just keeping you going, highly productive, better results. And then I'm a part of the Organizational Health Collective, along with my friend Terry here. And that group is for those of you who are consultants, coaches, internal practitioners in this space of organizational health, trying to build healthy organizations. And we work together to grow and to be the best practitioners we could possibly be, but also networking together to help share work when we need to, pull in each other when we need help on something, and just grow together through that network. And so that's a great group to be a part of as well. And then I'll let Terry share about him and his organization.
Well, I'm Dr. Terry Wager, a principal consultant, Generator Consulting, and I have a partner, Christine, who is amazing with actually building teams and helping people to get to where they want to be performance level. And she spent years and years with Starbucks creating outperforming restaurant experiences. And so that's what we do. And I work with a lot of executive coaching and helping people to perform better and work better as teams. So that's what we do. And we joined the Organizational Health Collective because Doug asked me to. And that's, here's the thing. I've worked as a psychologist in my own private practice, and it's a very lonely experience. And loneliness really doesn't actually help you hone your skills. It actually helps you hate what you're doing. The other thing is, if you don't have people that you're working with and bouncing things off of, you become your own echo chamber, and you think you're doing things the way everybody else is, or better, or whatever. But a lot of times you start to slide on your own standards, and you start to just go with maybe not your gut, and maybe with just what your head or your ego is telling you. And so for me, one of the biggest things the Organizational Health Collective does is allow me to have a group of people that we can talk to about different things. And I actually had somebody call me from outside, another member of the collective, for my 2 cents on a situation they were going through. And I was super grateful to get that call and spend some time given my opinion on how I would handle a situation they were going through. And I think that's really what this is about, is really helping you to not feel so alone in doing your consulting work.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, if you're doing organizational health work, it's all about relationships and people, right? Well, and how can you do a good job training others in that if you're not in relationships with other people?
I am a lone ranger,
right?
Helping people work as teams.
Right. Yeah. So it's a really helpful piece. But well, that's enough about us. Let's jump into today's topic, Terry. Today Absolutely. We're going to talk about employee retention. Again and again, I keep seeing people say, "Hey, you know what? I've got employees leaving, and I don't get it. Help! And so as we see that again and again, we're just like, "Hey, how do we help people?" Let's dive into that topic. And so today we want to dive into one: what are reasons why people leave? What is a good strategy for employee retention? What helps? What changes that? And anything else and everything else related to that. If you've been with us before, you know that we have wide-ranging thoughts, but usually are fairly well on topic, just in a wide range. So we're going to dive into that today. Just give you that fair warning. But so why are people leaving, Terry? Why do people jump ship from a company?
Well, I tell you this. A lot of people think that people are leaving because of money, or because they're going to get a better deal, or they're burned out, or they just a lot of employers think, well, I just end up with flakes and just can't count on people, and you can't find good people, and you can't keep good people. And I think the bigger reason, and in fact, those are all excuses. That's not true.
Yeah.
I think the biggest reason people are having trouble keeping people is because they're not paying attention to their people.
Mm, yeah.
And even if they say, well, I know what's going on with them, you may, but do they know you know?
Mm, that's good.
And I don't think, and I don't like bringing up COVID or anything, but COVID, uh, other than disease or virus that did some bad things to people, it really opened people's eyes to the fact that they don't have to stay in environments that they don't want to be in.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
and it opened people's minds and eyes to the idea that life is more than just about work, and life is more than just about getting a good job, staying there, and then getting a pension. Life is something to be really cherished and experienced and explored. And
Yeah.
what I think that really did to the business world is it knocked it on its head a little bit. And people are like, okay, well, now there's nobody good to work and everybody quit, and the Great Recession and all of this stuff. But what it really was permission for everyone to reevaluate why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's a major focus, it seems like, during COVID, during the Great Resignation, as it was called, during all of those things. I think there was a major recognition amongst the workforce that they want meaning and purpose in their life, and that a great deal of their life is at work. And so, if their life meaning and purpose didn't match up with their work's meaning and purpose, they realized, hey, guess what? I'm not guaranteed a long life with COVID, right? I mean, all of a sudden there's this global pandemic, and everyone realizes, you know what? I'm not necessarily guaranteed 90 years or 80 years. This could change in a heartbeat, just like it
Yeah.
just did. And so I think there's that realization that I'm not going to live for retirement. I want to live today, and I want to do things that really bring meaning and purpose in my heart, into my life, and I want to work with people that I enjoy. And so I think the nature of organizations and the need for a solid, strong culture and to be a place where people really want to be with you, that they're on task with you, that your purpose is their purpose, the things you're doing, your values match theirs, became highlighted in a huge way for employees and employers. Many of them are still catching up to that. Many of them
Well,
haven't really
yeah.
realized that massive shift.
Well, yeah, and I think that also there was a lot of bubble burst about people who thought that they were comfortable in their position and they'd be able to be retired, and then businesses uh, went through supply chain issues, and they
Mhm.
went through the ability to actually be in their positions or their buildings or whatever, and the massive reductions in different businesses letting people go all over the place. So there was the recession where people were quitting, but there was also a lot of businesses letting people go.
Yeah.
And so now I have no idea if what security was. I'm having it threatened by the disease or the virus. I'm also having it threatened by the business closing down, or the business going bankrupt, or the business deciding that they're going to cut a certain group out because it really doesn't make sense anymore because they've lost their bottom line numbers. And
Mhm.
so more than anything, uncertainty is winning this game, and I am really certain that I don't want them to be in charge of my certainty.
Mm, yeah.
And so I'm going to take charge of my own situation, become a coach. I was just kidding. But no, I think that a lot of people are like, okay, I can't count on my life, sure, but
Mhm.
I can't count on my work either. And I need to actually start thinking about how I
Mm,
make me my business as much as, or at least if I'm going somewhere, make me as a hired gun type business person that
mhm.
I can depend on my skills and my abilities, not just my job.
Mm, that's good. That's good. Which leads to some of the reasons why people leave, right? I mean, because they're like, hey, you're not giving me room to grow and advance. You're not giving me room to continue to learn and grow. That's one that's been a big piece that's come out. People are constantly going, hey, if there's not an opportunity here for me to keep expanding my wings, then I don't want to be here because I want to be able to grow myself. So again, where's my security? It's not in, hey, I'm going to stick in this one job for the next 30 years. It's, hey, I need to know that I'm developing as a person, as a worker, so that if this job goes away, I can go somewhere else.
Right. And I saw one stat somewhere, and I don't remember exactly where it was or when it was, but I think it was either right around 2020 or maybe even a little bit before, that the average person these days is now staying at their job. I'm not talking about the people who have long-term retirement
Right.
kind of things, but
Right.
this day, the gig economy, which started before 2020, but it got really popular then. But 2 to 4 years, and then people are changing to a new
Yeah.
job, new position, new challenges.
Yeah.
And so that gig economy came in and started actually changing how people do what they do and receive their money for it. And a lot of people are more focused on how I can actually build my skills for the next thing rather than I've found my place to live the rest of my life.
That's good. Well, and I think another piece of that plays out in the employee retention piece is I hear people complaining about their company that I have to leave to move up.
Yeah.
There's no path forward where I grow into the next position. And so I have to leave. And I've seen a lot of people, they leave a company and then they come back at a higher level. And then they leave the company to go somewhere else and they come back at a higher level. And there's a frustration that you guys will hire externally people, you'll pay them more, you'll put them in the higher position, but you won't move me up or pay me more. And so I've got to leave to be able to get to the next level, even in my own company.
It's funny you say that because I was before I became a psychologist and before I was sober and doing all of those things, I actually worked for a restaurant chain, and it was a very, very good restaurant chain, very, very good company. I love the company, but I topped out, and
Yep.
they weren't willing at that point, probably because of me more than anything. They weren't willing to move me into a management role or move me into a higher payroll. And I did exactly what you're talking about. I went to another restaurant in town that was one of the best restaurants in the Portland area at that time.
Yeah.
Dating myself, but they hired me for $1 more, and then I used that as a leverage to get back into the place I was that I really liked working. And I ended up with $1 more there too. And then I kept both jobs, but I was not willing at that point to stay in a place that wasn't paying me what I was looking for and not developing me more than anything, not developing me the way I wanted to be developed. And I gotta admit 100%, I was probably not the greatest person to develop at that time. They probably made a right choice,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
I did what anybody does when they want something and they're not getting it, is I went about and got my need met somewhere else. My need, my
Right.
desire. And that's the thing is a lot of people, if they're feeling unheard, they're gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I
Wow.
mean, the management at that time didn't really have a discussion about what I needed to change. I did hear something about a bad attitude, but at the same time, you'd have a bad attitude too if you weren't getting what
Yep.
you wanted, right? And I didn't realize that was actually just a baby, and not really an argument to be able to actually move up and have more responsibility.
Right.
And so I think that there's definitely on the employee side a little bit of growing up to do sometimes, and a little bit of professionalism that needs to be paid attention to it. And on the other side, they need to be able to help you understand that. And I think
Yep.
that's a big piece that's missing from a lot of companies, is
Mhm.
knowing how to have a conversation with people. My microphone's in the way. but having a conversation with people about how to become the developed employee.
Yep.
And I don't think that the businesses really talk about that too much or have thought about it,
Yep.
but that's just as important a conversation as retention is. How are you as a company focusing on employee development so that you have the retention and you
Yep.
have the interest of the employees? And what kinds of things are in there that make employees go, you know what? Anywhere else I go, they're not going to develop me the way these people are. So I want to stay.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and with that comes clarity of feedback, right? I mean, you've got to have a feedback mechanism. You've got to have clear communication with your people, and you got to be honest with them, right? If I'm failing in this certain area, I need you to tell me that so I can grow. If you don't tell me where I'm failing, how do I work on it? And if you don't tell
Absolutely.
me where I'm succeeding, how do I accentuate it? Right. And so that's that piece where it's like the lack of communication oftentimes is a killer because people are going, well, I don't know what's going on here. So, and I don't know the path forward and I don't know what you want from me. So I'm going to jump to somewhere where they tell me or where I
Yeah.
can grow.
And I'm going to stay on this drum pounding right now for a minute. Some of the things that happened to me when I was an employee were things like in critiques or coaching, they might even call it, the statements they would make is, you have a bad attitude.
Hmm.
But they didn't tell me what a good attitude looks like. They didn't tell me what a team player looked like. They didn't tell me what I needed to actually change. The other thing that they did often, and not at the place that I was when I made a change to go into psychology, that place was really good. But the place before that, I also used to hear a lot of people are saying, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people are saying this about you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Who are these people?
Right.
Because if you do that when you're actually trying to coach someone under you, what you do is you're not coaching them on how to change, you're coaching them on paranoia.
Yeah. Yep.
And I tell you what, the thing that made me more nervous and more difficult to be around when I was in those different cooking positions was sitting there concerned about who really thinks that about me,
Yeah.
instead of what I'm supposed to do to grow into the person
Right.
that you're looking for.
Yep.
And so, and I don't think that they were meaning to do that. I think it was well-meaning people that didn't know how to actually have a coaching conversation. And so they say, a lot of people are really feel like you're abrasive. Well, great. Who?
Right. Right.
Right. And by
Yep.
the way, I'm abrasive right then because now I'm defensive.
Yep.
And I'm a very direct person, always have been. And when I was having my drinking issues, and I was pretty direct then too,
Mhm.
but it was more frightened and more agitated in my directness, which comes across as aggressive.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, but
Right.
they're not telling me what I got to do. I just get more and more paranoid that people don't like me, rather than, we want to see you grow and this is how you do it. And
Yep.
so I think employers really need to think about how they're having those conversations. By the way, I also want to make sure that we all know that I am not saying you coddle people.
Right.
Confrontation is very important.
Yep.
Confronting somebody like I was and saying, look, things are not working out the way you want them to, and it's because of you is important.
Yep.
But now, not everybody thinks this. These are some specific situations that I saw that you did not handle well, that I want to help you handle better. Are you open to that?
Yeah.
That would have been so much better because I know what they're talking about instead of sitting there wondering who's around the corner saying stuff about me.
Hmm. Yep.
And I know I'm not the only one. I know that this happens all of the time. I've heard it happen.
Mm. Yep.
And so we want, with the employers we work with, to really start thinking about, one, directness is important, but real tangible situations with teachable interactions in there to give the person the tools to handle it in a different way, rather than saying you got a bad attitude or people really don't think that you're getting along very well.
Yep.
Like that doesn't work. And it happens over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I hear you saying is, one, anonymity doesn't help me at all because it makes me question everybody. Two, vagueness doesn't help me at all because I don't know what to change. You're just giving me this vague picture rather than these real specifics of, hey, in this situation, it would be better if you did X, or in this situation over here, I saw you respond like this. You need to respond differently. I wonder how much of that comes out for leaders and managers, more so the people who are managing people, right? How much of that comes out of their own lack of understanding? What do I want from this person? One, who is the person, and what are the areas I want to see them grow, and what would that actually look like? So that I'm actually thinking through specifics as I watch them, as I work with them, so that I'm now ready to actually turn around and go, hey, these are the things I desire for you. These are the ways I see you doing well. These are the ways I see you falling short. And this is the growth pattern I want to see happen in your life to get you there. But we're not that specific. We're very just vague, and it's a feeling. It's like, well, you kind of acted a little bit rough with this person or that person, and you just got to cut that crap out.
Right. You don't talk to people well. What?
Yeah,
what does
right.
that mean?
Which people?
The words coming out of my mouth aren't working. And honestly, I 100% agree. And I don't think that people are really taught how to manage people well a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They get thrown into the position, and then the other piece that I'm all about is emotional acuity or emotional intelligence or emotional mastery. People don't know how to identify what's going on with them, and I certainly didn't when I was out there. When I was a cook, before I actually went and got trained and did my own work. And by the way, if you are a consultant or you are someone helping other people, I very highly suggest you get your own work done, and really do some self-exploration around that stuff, because we are just as triggered as anyone else. And when we become part of the problem trying to help, it's bad. Yeah. And so I really think that, and I'm making this a PSA or something, but I think that, when we're looking at employee retention, what we're really talking about is relationship retention.
Yep.
And what happens is we think that it's about the money. And if we just have better benefits, or we just have, better perks, or we get a pool table in the office and move all of the office furniture out of the way to have a pool table, people are going to stay. Mm-hmm. And like, or a ping pong table. That's projected.
Well, bring your work dog to work day,
Yeah. And 4-hour work week. I can't impress this enough upon people that it's not about the money. And everybody uses that Maya Angelou quote, and I think I don't know that she's the first one to do it, but she's the one that got the credit for it. And I think it really is how we allow people to feel after we've left them that is the key, because there's that other cliche that people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. Yep. Or they leave leadership, or they leave the people that are in charge, and it's because they're not feeling good.
That's good.
They're
well, and I love
side or lost in some way.
Yeah. And I love, I've heard Patrick Lencioni say this. I don't know that it's original with him. It's probably from others as well. But the idea that, money and benefits are a sustainer, not a motivator. And so it's like, you got to pay your people enough. They're not going to stick around if you're underpaying them. They're not going to stick around if you're not giving them the benefits they need. But just upping that a little bit isn't just going to go, oh, wow, now it's all better. I'm going to stick here for the rest of my life. No.
I can't stand being around these people, but I got $1 an hour more, so now I'm staying.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. All this toxic environment, it just all went away for me. No, it didn't. And so what's going to keep your people there are the intangibles, are more the important things to them, to what make them feel great about being there, what excites them about being a part of what you do. And so I would, as you think about this as an employer, as a leader in a company, as a leader in a nonprofit, whatever it is, you've got to realize, one, a great culture is going to keep great people. If you don't have a great culture, people are going to leave, period. It doesn't matter. Clarity is vital. If people don't know why they're doing what they're doing and what they're doing, and how they need to behave and who they need to be as they show up, they're leaving. They're going to go find someplace they have that clarity. If people don't understand, or they're not part of the better way to put it, if they're not part of a great team, and teamwork isn't a part of things, and they're going to leave, right? They want to be with other people they enjoy working with. And so if the team sucks, they're out. Next, if they're not appreciated, they're out, right? I mean, there's simple things that are intangibles that people need to want to stick around. And
Absolutely.
Sure, they might not leave immediately because they've got to figure out where in the world could I go. But as soon as there's that opportunity, if those things are any and all of those, or a good number of those are bad, they're gone. And you're not going to keep your best people.
Absolutely.
And so flip that around. What does it look like then what's a great strategy to really, if we were to put together that ideal strategy, what does it look like to retain your best people? We can just flip it on its head, what I just started with, and run from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Number one, first and foremost, that they gotta know that they matter in the company, and they gotta be seen and recognized by not just the people that work next to them, but by the leadership, by the managers, by the senior managers, by the leadership. And I know businesses that they get really big, you might not be known by the people that are, at the home base. If you're in something like Intel or Nike or something, you might not be known by Phil Knight, but enough of the managers know, and the leadership know who you are, and make sure that you are not feeling like you're a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
I think is one thing. And then
some of that might flow out of Terry. I remember the story of Alan Mullally, and he had a reputation for talking to anyone and everyone all around the organization. So it may even be that he's never talked to me, but he has the reputation.
Yes.
Right. And so that could carry it for me too. Like, well, yeah, he's a great leader. He loves his people. He's around his people. He knows what's going on down here at my level. We're good.
Right. And if we go back into the past, and talk about great leaders, Andrew Carnegie of Carnegie Steel used to go and visit his steel workers all the time, and walk through and make his presence known, and make them feel good. Maybe not individually all the time, but he would make the team feel good. And he addressed the team as like, hey, I'm here. You guys are here. You guys are working with me. And he would have, different ways to motivate them by challenging their ability in a, the story I'm thinking of is he wanted more production. And so he didn't necessarily go and tell people weren't producing, or asking them how they're going to. He walked to the middle of the floor, and this morning crew or afternoon crew did 7 loads of whatever they were doing. And so he wrote a 7 down on the floor, and then the crew came in the next day, and then an 8 was on the floor. And it was just simply, hey, this is I know who you are, and I know what you're doing, and I think you could do better. This is what they did. What are you going to do? And it was very unspoken, but spoken very loudly. And then the funny thing is I was actually working into the second thing I really think is important, is have some kind of measurability to what you're doing. And have some kind of way of letting people know that there's something next, or something more that you're working towards. And so this is what Christine and I talk about a lot, is personal development plans. And so the Carnegie, in that example that I was doing, is productivity, and how much can you do in this hour or this shift or whatever it is. But really where we go is, especially this day and age where it's the information age, is like, okay, how do you want to grow? And can we put some kind of measurable steps in the process of what you're doing? And I think that that's really a second important thing to get employees really excited about where they're going is, are you learning a new skill? Are you developing a new routine? Are you able to increase your productivity? something to that effect that makes you look at what you're doing as a scale up event, not just going in and hitting a button.
Yep. Yep. That's good. I love the things I heard in there. I'm just going to highlight them as one. I think I love what you said about Carnegie, and I think this is true of Mullally and other great leaders. Is there was a sense of a we, right? He's down on the floor with his people, and it's we are accomplishing things. It's not, hey, you guys are here to do what I need you to do. It's we're accomplishing something, and so it's the goal's bigger than the leadership. Two, they're there challenging their people, right? Not and not in a way that's like, oh, you guys suck, you need to do better, but in a way that says, I think there's more to you. I think you can do greater stuff than this. I think we together can do greater stuff than this. And then I love the at the end there, you brought it back around as well to individually, I want to see you continue to grow. I want to see a path forward for you. And it's great that a good deal of that should probably be apply to their path within your company, but there's got to be room for as well. I just want you to grow as a person. So I'm going to go with who you are. And there's going to be some things you grow in that don't actually apply here, but there's going to be a lot that applies here. And let's just help you grow to that next level. And well, part of that's you see people, right? Part of that's you know them. And then you care. And you care about what's important to them and where they want to go. And then you're also care about, hey, we want to take you and grow you to the next level, because guess what? That's best for our company. It's best for you. Both
Absolutely.
interests matter, not just the company. And so it says to me that I'm not just a cog, like you said. I'm actually a person, and you actually care about my needs just as much as the companies, not at odds with the companies, but with the companies.
Absolutely. I think that the third thing that is really important, and people overlook it because all of the little pieces of everything that needs to get done, they overlook talking about why things are important.
Yep.
And when I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, I should say, I know what I'm doing. Other than that sentence there, I didn't know what I was doing there. But if we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, and there's no relevance to what we're doing, we start to feel worthless.
Yeah.
And we start to feel like our time isn't being respected or appreciated, or our contribution isn't there. And what happens is, I was talking about the idea of that button. I'm sitting there pushing the button. I don't know why I'm pushing that button. If I have a reason why I'm pushing the button, I will be much more likely to be pushing the button. Or the image that came to mind is, you got the hole in the wall that's leaking water. You put your finger in there and you're like, okay, why am I doing this? Well, because all the water is going to come if you don't. Well, what does that matter to me?
Yeah.
And how does me doing this benefit everybody else? And it's like, all I know is if I pull this out, I'm going to get a bunch of water on me, and I better run because it's going to all come down. But how does that actually benefit? And when am I going to be able to pull my finger out, or am I just here to plug the hole for the rest of my life?
Right. Yep.
And this is kind of what I think about when somebody's feeling irrelevant and there's no manageability, and I end up being, oh, well, that's just the guy in the corner holding it so it doesn't leak.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but no, he's an integral part, but we don't care about him. And it's just what, we feed him once in a while. and I think, he doesn't get breaks for anything else, though. It's a lowly existence there. And I think that's how people start feeling, is like, I have no real purpose.
Yeah.
I don't get any relief. Nobody pays attention to what I'm doing or why I'm doing. Nobody's told me why I'm doing this. And so I don't know why I'm here.
Yep.
And then they leave, and then everything falls apart because that was an integral piece, but nobody's really explained it. And so I think it's really important that we do make sure that people are seen for even the small things. They really need to be helped to understand how what they're doing is relevant to the rest of the project.
Yep.
And then the biggest piece is they need to be able to see some kind of momentum and movement forward, because if we're not moving forward, we get bored.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it's interesting in there, as you were saying that, one of the thoughts that hit me was we often treat employees, we dumb things down so much that we treat employees like children rather than as adults. And so, I mean, that plays its part in, hey, you know what? I need to know the whys because I think beyond just, oh, this or that, right? It's not, I'm not on this simplistic level of a child. I am on the level of an adult. Treat me like I am. And so I need to know, what are we doing? Why are we doing? What's the big picture? What's the strategy? What's the purpose? Those things are vital for me to continue on as a human being. Or if you treat me like a child, eventually I'm going to either A, become like a child, and then you're going to have all sorts of problems with me, or B, I'm going to leave because I want to be
Right.
treated like an adult. And so
Well,
let's treat our people with that dignity. The other piece I was thinking of on that is, again, that comes back into where the question of autonomy often comes in, right? People micromanage someone. They're all over them with, and I don't, you need to manage people. So it's not a, hey, let's run to the other extreme and not manage people, but manage them like adults, manage them like human beings. Treat them as though they have some semblance of some level of intelligence, some level of maturity, some level of all of those things, and meet them at that space and manage them, but give them the autonomy they need to be able to do the things they're capable of doing and the space to do those things and to check in and communicate about those.
yeah, I think one of the best questions that a manager can ever ask is, how can I help?
Yeah.
Because that lets the person know that, number one, they're not just an irrelevant person, but they're seen and they're relevant enough that I want to step in as the manager and go, how can I help you accomplish whatever you're doing?
Yep.
It just has a different flavor of interaction. And so often it's this idea, managers top down and leaders top down, leader and then the followers, and the followers do what the leader says. But I have found the most benefit from any team working together is when the leader comes alongside and says, how can I help
Yep.
you do whatever you're accomplishing? Because the idea of better together doesn't mean better together as long as you're doing what I say.
Right.
Better together means when we're working together and I, even as a leader, can step in to fill the gap that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're all working together for the greater good of whatever the project might be, rather than for prestige or for power or for domination or because I said so.
Right.
And I mean, because I said so, there's times that's necessary, but more often than not, reasoning and explanation wins the day. Because the other thing that here's another example, another little story. I was with a client of mine. I was doing a visit to one of their sites, and it was a construction guy, and he was doing something with attaching of already built stairs onto a deck or something like that. And he was going about it, and I was asking him, why are you doing it this way? And from a very, hey, I don't know everything that you're doing. I know about people, and I've built stuff here and there, but I'm not the construction guy. But he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, it seems to me you're trying to do this, but what if we did this? And he's like, oh my God, that's 10 times easier.
Wow. Yep.
And I didn't know, but in my lack of knowledge, I saw something different than what his overcomplicated knowledge saw, because he knew exactly what he was doing. Well, what if that happened all the time and we were more open to people who we might not think have all of the information? And then they come in and they ask why, and then we are able to actually do things much more efficiently, much more effectively, because we weren't locked into our process.
Yeah. I love one of the things I'm hearing, and I think is so vital. We talk all the time about collaboration with teams, but collaboration is a big part of management, right? You have to collaborate with your people to chart the path forward, because your ideas aren't necessarily the best, theirs ideas aren't necessarily the best, but together you can come up with some great ideas. That's why we think a team is great. That's why we want a team that actually has that vulnerability and that openness and the humility to be able to process and work through things together well, with some good ideological conflict, to get to the best spot. And the same has got to be true in our one-on-one relationship with those we manage. We've got to be able to have that back and forth, that feedback, those questions of, well, why are we doing it this way? Why not this way? What about that? Those questions are vital. Now, obviously, there are points, and like you said, Terry, there are points where command and control comes in, right? There's a fire in the building. You don't want to have a committee meeting over which exit's the best one to get out. You just want to say, look, there's the exit, get out.
Why don't we go
right?
up?
Right. So there are points that you have that tool in your toolbox, and you're just saying, hey, we got to do this. Let's get her done. This is it. Right. But those are more rare, and you earn the right to do them when you've led collaboratively in the places where collaboration is best.
Absolutely.
And
Well
so
said.
you build that trust, you build that energy of your people, that when it does come time for that command and control moment, they're all on board because they trust you. They know that you make a distinction between those moments, and you want their opinion when you can ask for it. And when you can't, they know. They're like, hey, this is cool. We're good. You'll ask for my opinion on the next thing that we can talk about that way. But right now, I just need to do what you said.
Absolutely. And the greatest thing that I have seen is when people actually are open, and shoot, I started doing that by accident, because I used to always think I had the answers. Maybe I still do, but I've convinced myself I don't think that all the time now. But I used to blurt out stuff and then be either contradicted or beat up for whatever I'm saying. And so I learned earlier, and maybe this came from my dad, is like, better not to open your mouth and look a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. And so I started, instead of declaring things, and I remember the last time I did it, that was just like the sting of stings, because somebody asked me the difference between a PsyD, which I hold as far as a doctorate, and a PhD. And I was with a supervisor who had a PhD. And I was like, oh, well, the difference is that the clinical PsyD is this and the PhD is this. And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, well, that's what I was told, is that what's being said in my house, in my head. And meanwhile, I'm like, and then he said, what I said about PsyD was exactly his experience of what he did for his PhD. And so I was like, oh, interesting. So how would I have reframed that so that I can actually give my opinion and not look like an ass? And it turns out,
feel like one more so, right?
From what I've heard or from what I've understood, this is what, but I don't have all of the answers. I have what information I've been given. Well, now I've given an opinion of what I believe based on the information I've given, rather than this is right and now I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And so I remember that so vividly, and it was during my internship. Probably the first couple of weeks I was in my internship with a new supervisor that says, no, you're wrong. Like, oh, I'm stupid. And it's like, I just, the wind got sucked out of my sails, and it was just terrible, and I was dead in the water. And he pulled me aside later and said, you don't always have to have an answer. And sometimes it's better to ask questions.
Yeah.
And this man became a central part of my developing as an inquisitive person, wanting to know what other people were thinking, much more than trying to teach everybody that I knew something.
Yeah.
And it was so valuable. And I come across very, very strongly as a very definite person about most everything I say. And it isn't because I'm sure of what I know, it's because of how I present stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I don't have the answers. And so I make it known now, to the best of my ability, when I'm not sure, and I make it sure that I'm asking questions much more than I'm, giving out information. In this kind of forum, I do share my opinion quite a bit, because I'm talking with you, and we're going
Yep.
back and forth, and in live streams, I tend to do that. But when I'm sitting with a client, or I'm sitting with an employee, or I'm sitting with somebody in a faction, I'm asking a lot of questions
Yeah. That's good.
because I want to know what they know, and I want them to realize that I believe they know things.
Mm. Yep. Well, and I love the example you just gave. It's interesting. Early on, as I'm hearing the story, I'm going, man, he's a bit of a hard ass, right? But as time went on in your story, what I began to realize is, no, actually, he knew you well enough to know that what you probably really needed was to know that you didn't know something, because you needed that push, you needed that challenge to then be humbled, to go for him to say, you know what, you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
But now for someone entirely different to approach it that way would have just crushed them.
Yeah.
And what they would have needed was, that's good what you started with, but, and again, that comes back to you got to know your people. What is going to be the best response for your people? You can't do one size fits all. You've got to
Absolutely.
get to know your people, and managing the other piece that I think is vitally important. If you're on this, you listen to this, you're on this with us, you got to realize that managing your people is your number one job. That's your job. If you have a team under you, your job is to manage them. If you are the CEO, your job is to manage your people. First and foremost, yes, you've got 10 million other things going on. I get that. But the bottom line is, if you don't manage your people well, everything else fails. It doesn't matter. And so managing your people and investing in them is vital. And so number one on that level, it's, hey, manage your people well. And then as we move up in levels within an organization, we've got to get to, as an organization, are we doing well around building teams that are cohesive, building trust? Are we creating the environment? The environment is a bigger picture in terms of the organization as a whole. Do we have clarity? Do we have cohesive teams? Do we have all of those things? Do we have a culture that matters? Do we really live our values? All of that stuff is absolutely vital. And do we hire people that match our purpose? Do we hire people that match our values? Do we hire people that are find meaning in what we do, and who match who we are? Those are vitally important on an organizational level, and creating the environment for us to really do really well, and for our people to want to be there. And then as it comes down to the manager level, there's all those things that we just sat here and talked about, that you got to know your people. You got to prioritize each person. You got to prioritize who are they and how do I manage them well? Not just, hey, randomly, I'm going to manage my whole team the same way. And if you can't handle that, well, then you can leave. Well, that's great. And you're going to have a whole bunch of people look the exact same, and you're not going to get the results that you need. If you don't have a diversity within that team, the ideas, all the different stuff that's valuable as a team gets lost, because all you got is a bunch of clones.
Absolutely. And there's so much to be said for, and I talk about this when the culture conversation comes up, and I'm not talking about like culture of business, but individual ethnicity and culture comes up. One of the things that I grabbed onto in grad school, and I've never let go, and I won't let go, is there is no corporate culture. There's a culture of one.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about everyone inside the culture as having their own culture within that culture. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know what like my experience is. I don't know what my experience is. I don't know what anyone else's experience is compared to mine, even if we're in the same situation, whether it's family, whether it's society, or whether it's business, because I might experience this culture as amazing while somebody else experiences it as terrible.
Yep.
And it's culture is in the eye of the beholder, based on how well that they can actually step out of themselves and talk about what's going on with them, as well as how much they can receive what's going on from the rest of the environment. Mm-hmm. And our personality vulnerabilities and our historical vulnerabilities and our point of view all weigh heavy on what our culture is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's interesting, because we talk about building a culture, but really what we're doing is building a culture framework for you to develop your culture inside that larger framework.
Yep.
And it's funny. I just popped into my mind that somebody was talking about on LinkedIn. Somebody was talking about introversion, extroversion earlier, and they were talking about. They made the comment, and it was some kind of TED talk or something, and they made the comment that we should be able to build a world that is accommodating to everyone. And I was like, that is a terrible idea, because that honestly, for me, that's almost the idea behind psychological safety, is accommodate to everybody's needs. And then we create a whole lot of coddling there. And what we really got to do is create adaptive people and be very, very good at coaching people in an adaptive way, so that everybody can walk in and become more adaptive and work into an environment without being crushed by it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and training your people to be people who want to be around and with the other people and serve them, not be served, right? Because that coddling becomes, it's all about serving me. It's all about my perspective, my way of seeing things, my culture, right? And it's like, okay, if all of us are sitting there selfishly fighting for our own culture, we don't have a team. But if
Right.
all of us are serving the other people in the room, we have a team, because we're all looking out for everyone else. And if that's the case, I'll be well served, you'll be well served, everyone on the team will be well served, as opposed to the opposite, which is no one gets served well. All we do is fight. And the other piece I think I hear in what you're saying is that we take generalities about a person's culture as the be all end all, instead of, I think the better way of seeing that is there's a way to use them as a launching point toward understanding. And so, like, I have an example of that. I have a young man from Nigeria that I was coaching. And in one of the situations that came up, I thought, well, I wonder if some of that, I know from what I know about Africa and a lot of different African cultures, they're a lot more collective than we are as Americans. Could that come out of that? And so I just asked him, I said, hey, this is my understanding, as best I know, of African culture, that more of them are very collective. And does that maybe come out of that? Is that possible, that it's more of a collective thinking thing than the even individualistic way we think here? And he was like, yeah, but, and so he got to educate me and take me further into what else was going on there, rather than me just assuming that's what I must be right. I know everything there is to know about African culture and
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
You
I
know?
absolutely love that. And I think that as we wrap up here, because I just noticed the time, uh, when we're looking at employee engagement and we're looking at turnover, turnover happens because, very simply, people do not feel like they belong there.
Yeah.
And no amount of money is going to keep them there. It might keep them for a month while they look for a better job, but it's not going to keep them there. What's going to keep them there is they feel a part of something bigger, and they feel like they are part of the team and that they are moving towards something. And so, stop thinking so much about the money and stop thinking so much about benefits. I think benefits are great. I really do. However, they are not going to keep somebody there who is not feeling appreciated.
No, very well said. Yep. Yeah. And kind of step you back as well to the piece of, hey, you know what, on a local level, as a manager, caring for your people well, know their humanity, know who they are, care about their needs, care about their growth, right? Care about, think of them individually, not just as I think of everybody else. And investing in your people is vital. And then when you get to the higher levels, the wider levels of the organization, you got to create a great environment that people love to be a part of. You've got to have a core purpose, and you got to actually live it, and people got to be on board with it. And your core purpose has to match who they are and what they want to do that brings meaning to their life. You've got to have core values that are actually lived. If you don't have that, you know what? Everyone's going to do their own thing. Everyone's going to be their own way, and you're just going to be a mishmash that's fighting against each other to do what we want to do and be who we want to be. So you need those key things of core values. You need the direction, and you need clear communication all the way down through. And even on the management level, one of the things I thought of that I didn't say earlier was prioritize one-on-ones. Like, make sure your people know they're a priority. And so don't all of a sudden something comes up you can schedule in around the one-on-one instead of canceling the one-on-one. Keep the one-on-one so your person knows that they're a priority, that you care about.
I think along with that, by the way, with the one-on-ones, don't do one-on-ones only when somebody did something wrong.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
just created yourself as a principal
Yep. Yeah.
of school.
Yeah. And don't always. Yeah. And everything that comes out of you shouldn't be correction. There should be a lot more affirmation, a lot more celebration, and I think that one of the things I'd say is you will continue to get what you celebrate,
Yep.
and you will continue to get what you hold accountable. And so if you do not hold people who are negative behaviors accountable, everyone else is going to descend to their level. But instead, if you hold people accountable and then you celebrate what you really want out of people a lot and often, they're going to continue to live up to that and live into that. And I think your Andrew Carnegie story is a great example of that. Of like, hey, you know what? He thinks we can get 8. I think we can do 9. Forget that 8, right? And it's
Yep.
just like, hey, people are motivated. They're exciting. So. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Next week, we're going to have a week off. We're both traveling, and so we won't be able to pull this off next week, but we will be back the following week, and we would love to see you then. And so we're thrilled you joined us today, and we will look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.